Nina Simone was 12 years old and she was about to give a recital, and she noticed that her parents were standing up in the back of the room and all the white people were sitting in the chairs. And she stood up at her piano and she said to whomever was next to her, I'm not playing until my parents get to sit down in that front row. And a lot of people don't realize that that was her first moment of, um, I guess I'll say, fighting back or participating in social justice, is what we call right now. Or, but essentially, it was this sense of awareness, right? As a child, you are making decisions, um, which could be, this decision could be just play, just that's okay. Don't cause any problems. Don't make any waves. Just play. But for her, that was the first moment of standing up and participating in what she later says is that was one of my first acts of the civil rights movement, is making sure that my parents could sit in the front row in order for me to play. And yeah, and she when she first met Martin Luther King, it was interesting because she went to him and she was like, I'm not nonviolent. And he was like, okay, well, thank you for sharing that. So unless you read her autobiography, you don't know that she was cultivated to be the voice of the civil rights movement. So Stokely Carmichael, James Baldwin, Lorraine Hansberry, other people in the movement saw her as this prominent figure. She had status and she had a sense of popularity in the US and then also in Europe as well. And they said, okay, we need someone. So we've got Martin Luther King, we've got, Medgar Evers, we've got these other people, but we need our music, our artists to help propel the movement forward. And she became that person at a cost. Um, I talk about how I have a couple of poems actually in this book, in the Lost Songs of Nina Simone, where I talk about her trying to the backstory is in 1963, when the Birmingham Four, the little Black girls, were bombed in the church in Alabama, 16th Street Church in Alabama. And when Nina Simone heard the news, she went to her basement and she started trying to make a gun of like a screwdriver and a hammer and nails. And her second husband, Andy Stroud, who was also her manager, said, "You're not a killer, Nina, but you are a songwriter. You're an artist." So she wrote Mississippi Goddamn, composed and sang it. And so Alabama's got me so upset. Tennessee makes me lose my breath. And everybody knows about Mississippi Goddamn, right? So this song was such an important song, right alongside Young, Gifted, and Black, right alongside, other songs that were making the African American movement prominent on the world stage. But the Southern radio companies started breaking her records and sending them back to the record company, and it was, we're not playing this on the radio. We're not, no, we're not going to play this. And that began her kind of I don't want to call it a downfall, but definitely a descent into, some people don't want Nina Simone to show up, because Nina Simone, one, she was already cantankerous because she was dealing with undiagnosed bipolarism. She was an alcoholic as well. Her husband was feeding her, pills to go on stage, pills to come off stage, uppers and downers. So just a lot of, things that were happening with a lot of rock and roll artists and, I'll say soul artists, the blues, jazz musicians at the time. But she was on the world stage. And she finally, in 1973, divorced America. And it was, I'm leaving and I'm never coming back. And in 1973 is when she first went to Liberia. And after Liberia, oh, there's a whole narrative, there's a whole story, a whole section about Liberia in my book. I say a section, several poems. and then Europe, so Switzerland, Amsterdam, the Netherlands, Paris. She lived in Paris from 1981 to 1983, and finally settled in Carry-la-Rue, the south of France, which is where she died. Um, Everything that she gave to us and everything she sacrificed for us, I think, is not as prominent as it should be. And hopefully, with this book, The Lost Songs of Nina Simone, I'm articulating some of the stories that she didn't tell and maybe she wanted to tell, or the way in which she wanted to tell them in a sane way, a way that was she was not inebriated. Um, Maybe things she wanted to say to her daughter, Lisa Simone, who was alive, who was a singer, who's beautiful, just a really beautiful spirit. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do with my book, The Lost Songs of Nina Simone. I was using my own poems in the book to talk about the music. I write poems in first person, second person, third person, first person voice. So I had to have Nina's voice in some of these poems, but I also had to have autonomy, that poetic license to really, the book starts with her ancestors and it's moving up from when her, in my mind, the imagination is beautiful, where I'm essentially thinking about what was it like for her African American ancestors to meet those American Indian indigenous folks who worked alongside each other, created a sense of unity, but there was also some Irish in there. So what was it like, that pollination, before Nina was even born? So I have a whole section where I talk about that in the book, and then I move up to her childhood, and then I go through her becoming this prominent voice, because her original name is Eunice Wayman, and she became Nina Simone, trying to hide from her mother that she was playing in a jazz club. So, um, but so I didn't have access to songs that Nina Simone um, had never published. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to really create a kind of meditation on her life and her artistry. And at the same time, I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is a book for all of us, for women, for Black women, for mixed race women, and the kinds of things that we get to engage in, how we raise our children, how we love our men or women or whomever, however you love, and then also what you will do for, around, because of your art and your craft.